So here we go, continuation of the tear apart of, or pretty much breaking down the good old steps of the cult of AA. So we're actually on step 8. So now, now that we've become like a willing slave to AA with first 3 steps, like we've gotten beaten down because we're completely powerless, hopeless, and worthless. And steps 4 through 7, we pretty much have to become reliant on the people with our sponsors and a good old God of our understanding ring. Now we have to sit here and we move into starting to, in essence, recruit other people. So hey, look, I'm completely fucking miserable in this place and everything, so I need some company so I can feel better about my shitty ass decision and everything, as my cat's looking for attention off camera. So step 8 is made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So now on the surface, you might be like, okay, so hey, look, all the people I screwed over, I gotta go around and make an amends and everything. So that doesn't necessarily sound like a bad idea. Like, okay, I go around and apologize to all the people I screwed over. Maybe I treated family members like shit, and I told coworkers to go fuck themselves. On the surface, you're like, okay, but that makes sense and everything. So what it does though in the context of AA is that it puts you in the position where you become the victim of, oh well, I gotta put myself below these people that I might have and screwed over. And of course, in essence, what could happen is that someone treated you like shit and everything and started treating you like pretty much like a fucking low life, and so you pretty much turned around and you gave what you got and everything, but you have to make amends for that and everything, so you have to look at your part and everything. So, and when it comes to maybe screwing over family members and build it, when you're looking to build back those relationships, just going back to them and saying that you're sorry isn't going to necessarily pretty much make amends. You're not necessarily going to be able to mend the relationship by saying, oh, look at me, I'm completely fucking changed now that I'm part of this cult and everything, and I need forgiveness. And what's going to most likely going to have to happen is that you're going to have to, over the course of time, rebuild those relationships. Now, if you are trying to rebuild relationships by making amends to toxic people, that's not necessarily the way to go about it. So that's everyone. We're making a list of everyone, even the toxic people. So that's where it gets it wrong and everything. So toxic people that treated you like shit and you pretty much gave what you got and everything, you have to go back and make amends for, oh well, I was a total out of line, instead of realizing, look, this asshole was treating me like shit, so that's why I told him to go fuck himself. I don't have to make amends to that person whatsoever. So that's where, once you look past the surface and everything, you're kind of okay, well, no, not necessarily. You don't necessarily have to go to everyone and just be like, oh, please forgive me, because I'm a worthless alcoholic. So this is in essence, the beginning of setting yourself up to kind of recruit other people, because if you're going about oh, look at how great my life is, and and kind of fake it till you make it type of deal, where you're kind of given that a false sense of bravado type of deal with portraying the cult and everything, you're going to oh well, we were all about attraction rather than promotion, so we gotta attract the people and everything to be able to help them overcome, when you've pretty much set yourself up for failure, like I've mentioned in the other steps, by becoming dependent on the people and some non-existent sky daddy that you pray to. Now you have to bring in other people so you can feel temporarily better about yourself, oh yes, I brought in someone new, so now I'm right above them because I have more sober time than them. I have a year and they're just coming in, so I can sit here and get that false false sense of inflated ego, be look at me, I've got a year and I'm going on about my later steps, and you're just coming in. Now I'm going to always reiterate, if you're you got with this one, you got to look at the situations and everything. So getting into the other programs like Smart Recovery Phoenix program, SOS, rational recovery, reach out recovery, using the Sinclair method. Once you get yourself on solid ground, and then you look at like you're able to look at your situations and okay, are there relationships I do want to amend? I do want to mend and make better. Like maybe my immediate and extended family I was treating like shit and everything. Okay, well it's not a matter of like making a list and going to make amends to them all and just like, oh yep, I'm sorry, I'm good. Okay. No, you have to pretty much like prove to them with your actions over the course of not only months but years, like, hey, look, I've changed and everything, for hopefully for the positive and everything. So that's why, like, getting into the alternatives, you're actually getting yourself set up for that positive change. You're not just like again, getting back to the beginning, completely powerless, worthless, and hopeless and everything. So yeah, my good old higher power's back. Yes, he's coming back to like give me attention, or he's demanding attention. Who knows? You think so, huh? Yeah, you always get into these videos. So like this is, like I said, on the surface you're like, oh, that's not too bad about making amends, but like I said, you're making amends to toxic people that treated you like shit and they initiated the toxic behavior. You got to make amends because like even though you were the victim in a situation like that, you still got to keep your side of the street clean and everything. So instead of, hey, look, this guy so and so was an asshole, he treated me like shit, I'm gotta cut him out and everything. Now sometimes it's not necessarily possible because you might have to like deal with them at work or whatever. There are recourses, like if it's a continuation over the course of like weeks and months and everything, you could always have like you could go to like HR or something, or like you could quite possibly set it up so that way you get rid of the toxic person if the behavior continues and everything. Not going to make amends and then like praying to God or whoever that like the toxic behavior is going to stop. You need to set yourself up and take responsibility. Instead of making amends to a toxic person like that toxic coworker, you need to set yourself up. Hey, look, so and so is doing all this, and you can, if you can get like receipts, like recordings, and the media, get them into situations where people can actually see, like, oh, hey, look, we need to get rid of this person and everything. That's the healthier way to go about it. Instead of making amends to toxic people, trying your best to cut them out of your life. And there's always I'm going to say there's always recourses that you can take to be able to do that and everything. So that's kind of like my rant on like why on the surface, even though step 8 might seem to be like nonchalant, like, okay, yeah, that's actually a good thing and everything, under the surface, like I use the toxic person as an example, it's not necessarily all that apparently is apparent and everything. So, and this one, it sets you up to, hey, look, now we got to start bringing more people into this cult and everything, because it's like, well, we don't promote it yet. It's kind of like a hypocritical way that they don't promote. So you see, they promote and they'd rather attract and everything, but people like pretty much what you see like quite a few Christian churches and everything, they go out to proselytize and like, hey, look, we need more people in here, so like we need to like so we need to bring the message and everything. So they tend to say they don't promote, yet they do. With in these last few steps, we'll see that kind of like now that you're a completely brainwashed cult member, you start bringing out this message so you can bring more people in and get, like I mentioned, that false sense of like superiority that you have, like, well, I've got 10 years and this newbie only has 3 months, and like hey, look at my boots and everything type of deal. So this pretty much like is the beginning of you pretty much turning around and being a loyal cult member. Now I've got to start bringing more people in because I'm all about this like sober life, and in all reality, you've set yourself up for failure with the previous steps, and if you don't continue doing this, then you're doomed to fail. Instead of being able to move on with your life with the other programs that I've mentioned in this video and I mentioned in other videos, and I've actually done complete videos on smart recovery, reach out recovery, rational recovery, SOS, all these other different like forms of I'm not going to say recovery, but moving on with your life, because in AA, there really is no recovery, no moving on with your life. There's only the constant of that constant misery of being reminded on how powerless, worthless, and hopeless you are with this alcohol abuse, instead of moving past it and everything. So that's why you want to, in the very fun, as soon as you can, ditch this program if you've joined in the first place, and either start off with the other alternatives, or get into them. If you're in AA, I'd say get out as soon as you can and get those alternatives. If not downright, don't join at all and get into those alternatives from the get-go.